Looking for a woman.
Like everyone.
Not like everyone. And not just any woman. Mine smells of lilac and gooseberries, dresses in black and white.
Deepest apologies, but I must ask. Is this about love?
Guessed it. It's love.
I knew it at once.
What do you know? Tell me.
I did a video recently on the itch game I Want You to Notice Me, which used spot the differences mechanics to tell a story of burgeoning puppy love. I want to use this video and The Witcher 3 to show an example of the opposite end of the spectrum. Can a video game present a long-running relationship and give the player a way to meaningfully affect its outcome? If you haven't played it yet, The Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt is a 2015 action RPG by CD Projekt Red. You know, those guys. Coming back to the game after 6 years, I gotta say, the visuals still hold up. Just pay no mind to the low poly onions. A benefit to using passing thoughts to cover one aspect of a game, instead of looking at the game in its entirety, is that I don't have to spend any time explaining a game's mechanics if they're not necessary to understanding the main point of the video, which means I don't have to play the game thoroughly in order to get that point across. Basically, this is my admission that I did a fresh run of The Witcher 3 on easy mode, or just a story as the game puts it, and skipped entire parts of the game whenever possible. I still had to do certain story missions in order to progress the early game, and had to scour for money in order to pay for the fare to get to the part of the game where the last wish takes place, but I finessed my way out of that border pass quest that usually puts a choke on progress in the early game.
Stay out of my way. You're done, freak. Get down this lake! Halt, or we'll shoot! Loose! Kill him! Ah, damn the bugger. The patrols will track him down.
I've wanted to make a video on The Witcher 3 for a while now, but it's such a large game and chock full of content. I wasn't sure how I could approach this game without limiting my scope to a specific subject matter. Should I make a distinction between The Witcher 3 as a dad game that isn't necessarily miserable, despite being set in a grim-dark world? That could be a video, but I still gotta go through Dad of War and The Last of Dad Part Dad to even begin approaching that topic. Should I talk about how the Witcher games have always made great use of Witchers, both as a class of people to establish their role in society, as well as using individual Witchers as foils to Geralt's character, and how the player's limited dialogue choices allow them to play Geralt as close to or as different from the Witcher mold as the player wishes? That could also be a video, but I'd have to replay the first Witcher game again. And have you seen Zoltan in that game? Looks like Brian Peppers. This video is limited to talking about the quest The Last Wish, which is a reference and response to the first Witcher collection. The Witcher was originally a series of stories by Polish writer Andrzej Sapkowski. In The Last Wish, Geralt of Rivia meets Yennefer of Vengerberg for the first time. Geralt's friend gets attacked by a djinn, and he seeks Yennefer's help, but she intends to tame the djinn and use it for her own purposes. Turns out that the djinn was bound to grant Geralt 3 wishes, and that he had 1 wish left before the djinn was free. The story ends with the city of Rhine practically demolished and Geralt using his last wish to bind himself forever with Yennefer. Before The Witcher 3, Yennefer hadn't actually appeared in the games, but was referred to from time to time by Geralt and his friends. The Witcher 3 made it clear from the get-go that Yennefer would factor greatly into the game's plot, and CDPR did a great job integrating her into the game's continuity. The first few scenes of the game show Geralt and his mentor Vesemir tracking Yennefer during the middle of a battlefield. Then the game shows an intimate moment between Geralt and Yennefer. Even though this would be the first time most players would be introduced to her character, the writing does a great job showing that Geralt and Yennefer have a long history with one another, based on how casually they can bicker in one moment, and then shift into flirting in the next.
I don't find that amusing.
You promised Ciri you'd train with her. Go before Vesemir bores her to death with those etchings.
Also, they're perfectly comfortable being buck-ass naked around each other. Even though this turns out to be a dream, as Yennefer had never set foot on Kaer Morhen before. This is a dream that's based on Geralt's experiences with Yennefer, or at least the experiences he prefers to recall.
What's this postscript? I still have the unicorn?
That's private. Very private.
Aha, I understand. At least I think I do. Maybe not entirely, but perhaps that's for the best.
Back on topic.
There's no other way to describe Yennefer but as a bad bitch. She gets what she wants regardless of what's in her way, and she has no qualms about facing the repercussions of her actions. Initially, she can come off cold and dispassionate, as when she meets Geralt for the first time in a long while at the beginning of the game.
Good to see you, Geralt. I'd even embrace you. Were you not covered in blood?
Sorry. Wasn't expecting to see you. To be honest, this isn't at all how I imagined we'd meet.
The main thrust of The Witcher 3's plot is that Geralt and Yennefer are tasked by the Emperor of Nilfgaard to find his daughter Cirilla, who is trained to be a witcher under Geralt, and has become a surrogate daughter between him and Yennefer. A troop of spectral riders known as the Wild Hunt are after Ciri for the magical properties of her lineage. Yen agreed to work with Nilfgaard in order to ensure Ciri's safety. This is what motivates the drastic action she takes during the course of the game.
What now?
Now we pay a visit to Ermien's laboratory.
Didn't know we'd been invited.
Because we've not been.
Just to show how far she's willing to go to get results, Yennefer had broken into a druid's chamber during a funerary feast in order to get a mask that could allow her to trace back any magical activity in a given area. This mask is considered a relic among the local tradition, and has a one-time use effect that Yen had spent to find Ciri's whereabouts. Using the mask summoned severe storms and creatures that thrived under such inclement weather.
May all Skellige know, Yennefer of Vengerberg is a common thief!
Control yourself, Druid. I haven't stolen anything. I've merely borrowed something and fully intend to return it.
Ha! The generosity. Just one small problem. Once used, the mask is rendered completely worthless. Not to mention the risk you'll bury us alive, and all the Isles with us!
After chasing that lead, Yen then went to a village that suffered the consequences of caring for Ciri. This village cared for a garden that bore the local goddess's blessing and was fertile with magical energy. So what does Yennefer do in such a sacred place? She revives a corpse to tell her what happened to Ciri.
Selene, Selene, Defrain! Selene, Selene, Davidar! Are you Craven of Lofoten?
No, I have a name. I am a Skull.
You died in battle. You've recovered.
Geralt, this is not the time to cheer up a corpse.
If performing necromancy on holy ground weren't enough, the spell used up all of the energy in the area and basically robbed it of its magic. Much like the mask that Yen used to find Ciri, she's not above stepping over the hospitality and respect of the local culture to get results. And the local culture doesn't take kindly to such selfishness.
How could you? We helped! And you! Inconceivable!
Now.
Don't you dare try to calm me! We'd every right to be furious! Furious! And you will pay for this. None shall open their door to you. None shall feed your hunger, and none shall tend to your wounds.
She does all of this with Geralt in tow, by the way. Whenever he agrees to help Yennefer out, he always has to remember that he could also end up burning bridges that he didn't want to destroy. This is the kind of person that Geralt chose to stay bound to for his entire life. But despite the callousness she may display, like, all the time, she always says it's in the service of those she cares about the most. And she's got a point there. Even though she's not afraid to face condemnation by others for her actions, Yennefer makes it clear that she chose to make those hard calls, not Geralt. And everyone usually understands that, which is almost painful looking outside of Geralt's head when everyone knows he's simping for the most insufferable person imaginable.
Wait. I did this. I alone. Geralt tried to stop me. I refused to listen.
I might have known. They warned me about you. Sorceresses.
Which leads us to the last wish. After exhausting all of the leads in Skellige, Yennefer asks Geralt to help her out with one more task. When Geralt learns that Yennefer plans to tame a Djinn, he's given one more chance to abandon the quest and let Yennefer do it on her own. But we wouldn't get to see the events play out, so yeah, we're playing right into the game's hands just as much as Geralt is playing into Yennefer's, as she had already chartered the boat for the task. The quest is pretty straightforward. Go to 3 sites and investigate them. Eventually you'll confront the Djinn and have to fight it off until Yennefer can bind it. What makes it interesting is the dialogue between Geralt and Yen, both during the quest, the events prior to the quest, and the aftermath of the quest. The games have made it very clear that Yennefer is someone very important to Geralt. He had died at some point during the novels, but got better and ended up with amnesia. This may have caused him to stray from her side at times, but that bond was so strong that it kept them going all those years.
One thing before we go. Why didn't you contact me? Didn't need me? Didn't even want to see me?
I didn't want to spoil things. I'd heard you and Triss made a great couple.
Yen, I'd lost my memory.
Really? That's your excuse? Let's drop it, alright? It's not what you think, or it helped me understand how much I love you. I don't wish to hear it. Any of it.
While it's clear to the player that Yennefer is very important to Geralt, it's not that easy to figure out whether Geralt is just as important to Yennefer. We've seen what she's capable of when she's driven, and we know that everyone knows that she's Geralt's blind spot. Even Geralt understands how much of a hold she has on him when he commits to making choices with her in mind.
We are about to make some enemies.
I don't need everyone to like me. I most value the opinions of those I care about. You, for example. So, can we start?
Mm-hmm.
But when Geralt finally gets Yennefer to explain why she really wants a Djinn, it poses an interesting question for these two characters.
How long has this been going on, Geralt? This thing between us? 15, 20 years? We repeatedly split up, then return to one another. Something draws us to each other, but I can never be certain if it's a true feeling or merely a bit of mischief by a Djinn.
So that's it? This is about my last wish?
You asked that Djinn to bind us together forever. I want to ask this one to take that wish back.
Why would you want to do that?
To see what it's like without it. To see if we'll still matter to one another. Or if we'll be like two strangers.
What if I don't want to know?
I'm afraid you no longer have a choice.
The bond between Geralt and Yennefer is probably the closest thing to a marriage that these two will ever have in their colorful lives. Yennefer feels as if they're in a rut, that they go through the same motions, but at the end of the day, they're only really bound to each other out of a sense of duty. Because a Djinn spell can only be broken by another Djinn, she wants to break that bond, and really see if what she and Geralt have is genuine. I wasn't expecting that to come from a game where a previous installment granted you trading cards as an award for digging down love interests. You can agree or decline to help Yen, but by this point, you don't have much of a choice, since you're both on top of a snowy mountain. When Yen finally teams a Djinn and breaks the bond, she says that she doesn't notice a change at all, suggesting that maybe there was more between them and that spell. But what do you think? The game leaves it up to you to speak on Geralt's behalf. Are all those sweet nothings he's whispered throughout the course of the game the result of a magic spell?
You look beautiful.
Thank you. Nice to see you again. Lovely outfit. You look dashing.
Thank you. You're dazzling.
You know I really missed your candidness. I don't know what Krach wants, but when we meet with him we should have clear minds.
I'm not gonna drink. Why dull my senses when I'm in such pleasant company?
Do you plan to compliment me all evening?
I plan to tell you what I think.
Or does Geralt really still love Yennefer? I'm not gonna lie, I cracked up when I saw the dialogue options for the first time because it was so nakedly binary. But what I like about The Witcher 3's writing is that Geralt's voice delivery smooths over the writing and softens the whiplash.
Jin might have cheated us after all.
Why?
Because I don't feel that anything's changed either. I love you, Yen.
And I love you.
Also, the game does a great job showing how Yennefer can be hard to love, but lays out enough exchanges between Geralt and Yennefer to allow the player to make an informed choice over the future of their relationship. Personally, I chose to keep them together because I read the quest as them renewing their vows, in a way. You can totally shut her down, and it causes her to clam up and double down on her coldness to Geralt.
Sorry, Yen, but magic's gone for me.
Truly? But how is that possible? I still feel the same. You should too. I don't understand. What does this mean?
Means the Jinn granted your wish.
Right. Fine. Good. Glad we got that over with. We know where we stand, at least. Naught left for us here. Let's go.
Wait. Magic's gone, true, but that doesn't mean I don't like spending time with you. Let's sit a while.
But I think these two deserve a happy ending. If only so they don't have to argue custody over the unicorn.
Yen, let go of the mane.
I know you. I let go, you throw us off. Don't even try.
The Witcher 3 is definitely worth playing, by the way. It's $40 on Steam and GOG and frequently goes on sale. Don't let that stuff you've heard about Cyberpunk dissuade you on this game.